Dreamers of dreams.
All right, good morning, guys. This is NAT3MILL and CMCarter here from ReelChat. Thank you so much for joining us. Chris, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, my friend. I'm well. How are you? Now, for the people that don't know, Nate had a home improvement project yesterday, which is manual labor in Tucson, Arizona is not a fun thing. So, how are you feeling, bro?
Sunburnt, tired, exhausted. I think is there a D, all of the above?
I definitely will give you a D. Definitely pass that one. That sucks, man. I'm sorry, but you managed to wake up. We're doing our thing today, so props on you for that. No coffee. You don't have any coffee in your screen.
I was going to make literally I was going to make some, but I almost slept through my second alarm, and it was like 10. It was like 10:45. I was like, oh crap. Okay, don't have enough time for coffee. I'll get it. Well, I'll get it later.
That's why you're the host, bro. I mean, there have been times that I'm like, I'm hungover, like, oh my god, how am I gonna do this? And you're online, and here you are, after a day's worth of hard labor and gaming and all that stuff, and here we are, we're still ready to roll. So that's a compliment on you, bro. It really is.
Thanks, buddy. All right. So what's our topic today, Chris? What are we talking about?
We are talking Conjuring Part 3. The Devil Made Me Do It. Which I'm a huge fan of the Conjuring franchise. I think, watching, I know you're a huge James Wan guy like me too. So I know that Saw, right? And Saw is kind of where you kind of really appreciated him, and me too for that. My independent filmmakers, he and Mel, they met in film school. They found enough money to create a film and get it produced and released on a high level, and next to Paranormal Activity, it was made for a minute amount, but it has made a shit ton of money. It spawned a ton of sequels, and and because of that, because of the success that he's had, The Conjuring was kind of his gift, Warner's gift to him, like, hey, you want to make something terrifying, here you go. And so have you been a fan of the Conjuring franchise as a whole?
As a whole, let's see.
Yeah.
All right. Let's. Are we talking about the Conjuring movies themselves, or are we talking about the Conjuring universe?
That's a good point. Let me clarify. We'll talk about the universe in a bit, but I just want to focus on the Conjuring films right now. So Conjuring 1 and 2. Have you been a fan of those films?
Absolutely. I watched the first one, and funnily enough, the first person I watched it with was David Harris.
No way.
David Harris hates scary movies. There's a pillow I still have from my college days because it was like part of like a bedroom set and stuff like that. But
yeah,
this pillow right here, he was watching it like this, and he was like cowering behind it. And that part where the person's hands come up behind the woman and just like clap.
Yeah. The clap,
like, yeah. I just remember him screaming and just throwing the pillow. And
oh, shout out David Harris. I love it.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of people that you want to watch scary movies with, though, right? Like there are people with, like, my roommate Dustin. He never, like, watching him watch a scary movie is like watching someone read from a book. There's no up or down. It's just flat. And it's I get it. Some people just have that emotional response to it, but it's not fun for you to watch them. So to be in a room with David and kind of see how he would react to that, that's awesome. That part is awesome, by the way, too. In the first Conjuring, the clap when she's in the basement, she gets locked in and it's behind her. They did a great job, and I love the Conjuring part. Both films for me have been great. I love both. I think 2 was my favorite.
2 is your favorite? Wow, okay.
I think 2 is I think they really kind of found their wheelhouse in 2. I think Patrick Wilson and Via Farmiga are just great. I totally buy them as the Warrens.
Yeah, their chemistry between themselves is amazing. Yeah. And I think they found this right in number 2 too. I like number 1 out of 3 of them. I mean, Conjuring 3 was okay. It was.
Let's not get to it. Yeah, let's get into it. Let's talk about Conjuring 3 now. So what'd you think of it? And then we'll go to our ranking system for the 1 through 3.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody knows that there's like these cases themselves are based on true stories. Of course, they embellish them a little bit, right? I mean, if anybody has studied the Devil Made Me Do It case in Connecticut from the movie, that was the first actual murder in that actual, in that town, even in the whole state of Connecticut.
Oh shit! Really?
It's
I
the
didn't know
first
that.
documented murder in the state of Connecticut was a court case where the defendant pleaded not guilty by not insanity, but by the process of demonic possession. So, if anybody's actually studied the real court case, that's pretty nuts. Just to think about the first murder case itself, and then the actual defendant is not pleading insanity or guilty, but actually pleads not guilty by reason of demonic possession. And
Yeah.
that case, I mean, of course, in the actual real life telling, there's not this whole, oh, there's a Satanist behind it, we have to find her and stuff like that too. That's not in the light. That's of course embellished by the writing and of course the movie. But the third one didn't act like a horror movie to me.
Right.
It didn't. I wasn't really scared like I was in 2 or 1, There wasn't a lot of... Everybody thinks of jump scares and stuff like that. I think Conjuring is a little bit different in jump scares because some things will happen. You're like watching, like, oh shit, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And then all of a sudden it takes like a right turn and it does something different.
I couldn't agree.
A good example would be number 2 when Patrick Wilson's in the water and he's trying to fix their house a little bit. He's trying to just be a nice guy. And you see the shadow behind him, and the actual mom's like, oh, there's something behind you. He turns around and looks, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, I don't see anybody. And all of a sudden, the thing attacks the woman that saw the shadow. That kind of stuff. Didn't get a lot of that in number 3. I don't know.
No, not at all. And I'm so glad you brought that up because for me, the Conjuring universe, and I'm sorry, I don't mean Conjuring, I mean the Conjuring films, have been really good with kind of a slow burn horror. They really ratchet up the tension with letting the audience kind of, and I'm sure you've noticed, they play in a wide frame for a big part of it, and then something will dance in the background where the audience is aware of it, but the character is not. So we the audience starts to feel that tension. One of my and I didn't think about it until you even brought it up. One of my favorite parts about the entire Conjuring films happened in the second one, and it's the nun sequence. And the nun sequence takes forever. It's super slow. We don't have a jump scare at all. We have that creepy looking down the hallway, and then it follows then follows her to the study, and then in the study it comes through the painting, and that sequence is probably one of the top 4 sequences in horror for me. And we don't have a jump scare in there, and it's just creepy. It's super tensive. It's I imagine how A Quiet Place was when I watched it the first time, and we're gonna talk about A Quiet Place 2 probably next week, but that's for next week. I couldn't agree more. I think that the Conjuring 3 did not really feel like a horror movie to me. It felt like a stylized, maybe whodunit detective thing with elements of supernatural in it. And so, again, I'll watch anything that Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are in as the Warrens.
True.
But it didn't feel right. There's something. Maybe it's because James Wan wasn't directing, but he did write. He did co-write.
I just see that he wrote it. Yeah. So that was the interesting thing. I saw that he wrote it, but he didn't direct it, which is something I was like, okay, it's probably gonna be behaving a little bit differently. This definitely behaved a little differently.
Yeah.
The first part with David Glatzel and Arnie Johnson and stuff like that too, when they're doing the actual case of the exorcism of the boy, which is actually how it happened, right? That part felt good. Like there was definitely an intense process of horror. There was an intense process of thriller and stuff like that too. Especially the whole almost like cliffhanger in the very beginning of the film, where the only person that knows the demon went from David to Arnie. Was Patrick Wilson's character Ed Warren, because he saw it, but then he had a heart attack because of the the exorcism.
Right.
And he saw the freaking exchange and the invitation, and I was like, okay, that's good. I'm in it. And then it slowed down a little bit more, and it became less horror. But it's hard to build something off of a court case like that unless you're doing like what Emily Rose did, Exorcism of Emily Rose, where that was also a true story, where there was a girl that was possessed, and the priest tried writing to the Vatican about wanting to perform an exorcism on her, but the Vatican never really responded, or I think they needed more proof or anything like that. And he performed the exorcism himself, there's a huge list of things you need for an exorcism, especially if you're going to get, well, number one, the permission to do it from the Vatican, and he did it, and she died. And it was performed incorrectly, and the state prosecuted the priest for that death and blamed him. And there was like mitigating circumstances, like the fact that she was epileptic and had an epileptic seizure halfway through. The medications that she was on were not actual good dosages to help her in her sense as well too.
Is that real? Is this a real case?
Oh yeah, it's another real case.
What? I thought that was just a movie. I did not know that.
No, based on a true story.
Interesting. Huh.
Yep, I studied when I was in college. But anyway, what was it called? So it's really hard to do something like that when it's something that happened in the past, right? Especially with the court case, because it's kind of slow a little bit, right? So I was hoping a little bit more, because I like court case movies, but honestly, we didn't even get anything in the court case, which kind of I think they missed an opportunity there, because that would have been cool to see him on the stand talking about it. Maybe have a priest come forward and stuff like that too. Make it a little more interesting like that, and then you can get like maybe some of the process from Vera and because like most of these movies, they're when they have their public appearances, they're treated like frauds.
Yeah.
You know, which is something that that couple probably had to, suffer through most of their life, because Ed passed away in 2006, and Lorraine passed away 2019, very recently. And right now, the people that are in charge of Annabelle and the whole occult museum that's actually a real place is their daughter's fiance, or if they're married, I can't remember. His protege, his actual demonical protege is in charge of their house and their occult, and their daughter Judy, who's been in like what two of them or all three of them?
I think she's been in all of them.
And so they're continuing their process. So I think number 3 missed the target a little bit with this one. That's my take on it.
It's true. I mean, you bring up the court part of it. We get the court part, I think, in 3 times the entire movie. The public defender, when he's charged, and at the very end when we have the resolution, and that kind of fades out after, 3 minutes. So I did think it was cool when the defender asked, they tell the defender like, hey, demonic possession is a real thing, and we can kind of show you some stuff, and the defender's like, all right, show me what you got. And then we cut it back to at the court, and then she says pleads not guilty, because I'm sure that in our minds they take her to the museum and they show her Annabelle and they show her all the terrible stuff that they have collected over the years. But I didn't. It's funny, me and Jessica was watching it, and there's a moment at the end of the movie when you just take a second and then you talk about it, because you're collecting your thoughts. You don't want to come off like, it's not a knee-jerk reaction like, was this bad because I just missed something? Because I'll be honest, when I saw let's Get Out. When I saw Get Out, no, I take that back. It wasn't Get Out. It was the second one from Jordan Peele. I can't think of what I can't think of the name right now. Thank you. I missed Us. I wasn't smart enough to get it at first. It took a couple of times of watching it, and then, dude, and I can admit it. Like, hey, I missed it. Like, hey, I didn't see it on first glance, but then I saw the brilliance the more times I saw it, right? And so this one, I'm thinking, did I just miss something? Did I? But I don't think hearing you talk about it when me and Jessica talked about it yesterday, I don't think we did. I think The Conjuring 3. I think it missed the mark because it didn't have some of the elements that the other ones did. And I think a big part of that, and it's going to sound weird, is we didn't have a secondary family to go to. Like in the first one, we had the family when the mom gets possessed. We spent a lot of time knowing that family and in that house. And it almost feels like the Warrens were kind of a secondary character almost, which is interesting. And even in the second one, when we have the family in the Enfield house and the poltergeist, we spent a lot of time with them. And then the Warrens come in. And here, the Warrens are there kind of from the beginning. We do have Arnie and kind of his situation. We don't spend a lot of time with them. I kind of felt like out of the 3 of them, I felt least attached to maybe, Arnie and his and Debbie. And I think I can't think of the other guy's name, but they made the other guy very unlikable. The one who was drunk and the one who actually ended up getting murdered. Yeah. He was a completely unlikable character. Now, had they killed Debbie, that would have been like, oh my God, that would have been like, I hope they don't, or they work in a dog kennel. I hope they don't kill a bunch of dogs. They made the person you hated most, that's the person they killed. So to me, it was like, I do feel like that it felt like a little bit of a detective film. I don't know. To me, that just didn't land. There weren't a lot of scares. I completely agree with you. I'm gonna ask you right now, since when we just both saw it, what was the scariest part of that movie in your opinion? Like, what was the biggest attempt at that scare?
The waterbed.
How did that? Yeah, that wasn't a
I was like,
flashback.
oh look, it's a kid. I was talking to Rachel. I used to actually love waterbeds, and all of a sudden the face just comes out. I'm like, oh, never mind. I don't like him. I don't want him. I don't like. I'm like that. I'm like that guy that you watch horror movies with, because I'll be the one that just sitting there like, what? I don't want. I don't. Why are we watching these? This is not good. I don't like. I don't want to watch these right now. You know.
So you and David Harris must be quite a pair to watch horror films with. I swear. Poor Rachel. I swear.
She loves horror films, man. If there's a movie type she'll pick, it'll be horror.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, she'll be like,
Yeah.
oh yeah. Like anytime I go to the Amazon webpage or the Netflix thing, depending on if Netflix will ever figure out how to add your list back to most recently added, which is stupid. It's there's like 5 horror movies, maybe 1 comedy, and I'm like, hey, did you watch these yet? She's like, no, I'm saving them for us. I'm like, no, it's fine. You don't have to wait for me. You go ahead.
Yeah, you got that one. You that's hilarious. I love it though. I love it. The waterbed was good though. I like the waterbed. That was a good scare. That was a good build up. Obviously he talks about that being Nightmare on Elm Street 4, kind of being a callback to that. There's a big kill in on 4 with that, and I would have to agree. I feel like the scares are missing for me, and the other part of it too, it was atmospheric, I'll say that, but not nearly as atmospheric as the previous 2 Conjurings, and I think that's a real it's a tough metric, man, like, right? Because the first 2 were so good. They were incredible, and then the Conjuring universe now, it's not fantastic, but The Nun wasn't bad, who weirdly enough,
You liked The Nun?
Farmiga's, I didn't hate it. I liked it because I like gothic horror films. I also like Crimson Peak, which is hard to argue as a horror film, but it's like that gothic feel to it, that old Transylvanian feel type of thing in the live action film. I'm a sucker for Bram Stoker's Dracula, but I think that's universally loved. That's not just me.
I like the tone, but The Nun wasn't scary, and if anything, it was kind of unbelievable. If you look at the whole Conjuring, like they didn't develop it at all. It was more scary in the second movie when you didn't really know anything about it.
I totally agree. That version of The Nun was fucking terrifying. The film version of The Nun, it was nowhere near the second version, but I liked how it looked. I'm a sucker for the cinematography, and so when you give me a castle or a graveyard with a dude digging up a grave with a cool blue moonlight and a warm lamp next to his face, it just brings back just really cool cinematography.
Did you watch Curse of La Llorona?
I did see that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That felt scarier than The Nun, even though it was very typical. That was more of a typical horror setting, right?
Yeah.
Those jump scares were more akin to, more of a nod to James Wan's jump scares from the Conjuring films. But if I was going to say anything, Annabelle Comes Home probably be the closest to the Conjuring movies, in my opinion.
Couldn't agree more.
Because for one, it takes place in their home. 2, yes, you have Vera and you have Patrick in the film as well too, but it just it was cool to see people in that film in no way at all, shape or form prepared to conquer or defeat the evil in the movie.
Yeah.
So that's horror, in my opinion. Horror is when you have somebody that doesn't understand what they're being involved in, and just watching them get tormented from it, and then you have like a resolution at the end. Sometimes the resolution is good, sometimes the resolution is bad. That's why I like horror. I mean, I'm not like, let's watch a horror movie because I love it. No, that's not me. I'm more like, okay, I want to see who wins, because horror, it's either bad or good. Well, most action movies, the guy always wins. The hero always triumphs.
Right.
The rom-coms, the couple always gets together somehow. They come to some kind of resolution, like agreement. Horror, the family could be dead. The evil could be in the good guy. Like The Omen or Exorcism of the Exorcism, the original Exorcism.
Yeah. In horror, I mean, there's so many subgenres to it. Did you see? I want to come back to this, but there's a movie called The Relic, which kind of embodies or kind of gives the dementia like a face and a creature, and it's incredible. But I
Hmm.
will say about horror, you make a good point. I will say that horror, and this is maybe why I gravitate to it so much, and maybe I just didn't realize until you were talking, that to sell a good horror movie, in my mind, you have to have a good backstory. You have to have a reason, and generally, sometimes you can get away with it's just shit happens, right? You can just kind of get away with saying, hey, that's just how it goes, and you were unlucky enough to get this thing coming after you.
Hmm.
But for the most part, for a good film, for an effective film, for a film that's going to just kind of plow through the trash, you're going to have a story about lore and history and why something came to be. And The Conjuring 3, I think one of the things that it does well is that. I mean, granted, it doesn't do it really well, it just does it okay.
Right.
When we talk about, the preacher, John Noble, that's the actor's name, who was phenomenal in a series called Fringe. J.J. Abrams created it. It's back in Fox. It was like that. It was like the X Files, but always the monster in it, and it was incredible.
Hmm.
He did a great part in that, kind of explaining, the black magic and this his collection of stuff. Because when we have that part, when we get to a tensive part, and when Lorraine is saying, I don't want to go down into the basement,
Hmm.
that's the only part where I felt uncomfortable. But I'm a
Oh, that makes
sucker.
sense. Yeah, but then all of a
you
sudden,
know
I would have said that, but then let it sit. Like she immediately goes down in the basement. First, too.
exactly.
Patrick
Yeah.
Wilson's not the first one. Like the shooting from that angle was horrible. I
and,
felt
and I Yeah.
I felt more uncomfortable when she went there back here alone.
Well, sure. It's like in that part in Zodiac, a Fincher film, where he goes down to the basement. And anytime basements just in general are uncomfortable, which ironically enough is why there have been, the finale of the first Conjuring was in a basement. The
Hmm.
big setup for the second one was in a basement.
Hmm.
So it's not a secret. But I agree. I think that, and it was kind of unrealistic. So just we have like this giant tunnel system, which is kind of feels like a subway, but why under this guy's house? That that didn't make sense to me, and there was
Right.
a lot that just felt it wasn't fleshed out, which sucks because James Wan was part writer, so I
Yeah.
don't I don't understand that part of it. I really don't.
I
And
think you
so,
wrote. I think you wrote the prologue, and that was about it.
which was great, and you brought it up at the beginning. The first part, the first maybe 10 minutes of the film felt the most Conjuring ific out of the entire film. The possession that goes wrong, that just to me feels great, and the setup is great. Ed can't speak because he has a heart attack, and like we have this, this big news that he can't get out because he's unconscious, and it's like that ticking time bomb that we have. But as soon as I think Arnie kills his first person,
Hmm.
that's for me when it kind of starts to fall off. That's
Yeah.
for me when I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
It was a Conjuring film, but I didn't love it.
I did
I didn't
like
love it.
one of the things that they did really well was they kept true to the. Put this out there. How do I say this? The powers that they explained in the first one,
Sure.
yeah, I think it's the first one.
Yep.
When they talked about demonic possession, where it doesn't like when he invites the demon to leave the kid, he doesn't just go on in the same process as the kid is, right? He's not
Right.
like the same level of uh, possession because he's like, okay, first it's infestation, oppression, and then possession. Like that's one of the three stages that Ed, Lorraine talk about in their first movie. So I like that they kept that part. Like you create a world that some people believe in and stuff like that too. I'm glad they didn't change the rules, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And they create, and I think because James had kind of created this universe and he knows his characters really well,
Mm-hmm.
he comes back to that. And they do some stuff okay. Like I like the totem. I like the idea of it being a human. And I think the copy says it. These are people. They're evil people, but they're people. And
Mm-hmm.
so, at the end of it, the big bad is a person. And so, I think that was fun. I like the totems are interesting. I've talked in a couple episodes now about the film that we're shooting later this year. It's going to have totems in it. It made me a little uncomfortable watching this because I'm thinking, dude, do I got to get somebody in there to make sure that we're good and bless our set or something? Which, by the way, there's a couple of films that have done that. I think The Exorcist did that. I think Poltergeist did that. Like, it's not unheard of to have a priest come on to set and bless your set just to make sure that all the negative energy and is not something you want to bring home with you when you're trying to do something creative.
Yeah.
But did they do something really well for you? Like, I think we can agree that it's a mediocre entry in the Conjuring 1, 2, and 3. But did they do something well that really stood out to you in the film?
Well, knowing that these people were real people, it's hard to suspend disbelief a little bit. The fact that the heroes might die, right, or hurt themselves.
Yeah.
I know the court case itself, so it's really hard for me. Okay, well, she's at the cliff. I'm like, no, she's not gonna die. She's gonna be saved. You know, that was the part that was in the trailer. Which, Hollywood, stop putting these really awesome parts that could put you at the end of the seat in your damn trailer. Okay,
Yeah.
stop doing it, especially horror films. Every single time I see a horror movie, and I'm like, okay, this is that scene. I guess I can look away and grab my beer. Because I know it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, she's running, it's dark, and all of a sudden she's at the canyon and it's bright out. And Patrick's got this horror look on his face. And I'm like, if you kept that in the movie, but fine.
Right.
Your question was, did they do something well for me?
Yeah.
I guess keeping the rules for the demonic possession was one of them. They didn't change that as it continued, especially under a different director. The first prologue was probably my favorite part. I disliked the fact that they made the villain human. Mm-hmm. They didn't do that in the first two. I think they were trying to do something different here, but it's hard because what happened, like in the court case, he says that he was possessed, but then at the end of the whole process, the demon leaves him. Right?
Yeah.
And then it comes back, and he's possessed again. But is he possessed again, or is he controlled by the witch? They kind of effed that up a little bit.
That's a good point.
They effed that up a little bit.
That's a good point. That wasn't clear. Yeah, that's a good point. Like he was in Marionette almost, but if it left him, and then how could it also be in him and Patrick Wilson at the same time? Because if that were the case, then he could have done, the girl, the boy, and the man of faith at the same time, which that's what the curse implies, right? That it has to be a child, someone in love, and someone of the faith. It's like those are the three people that the demon must kill, or no, they have to kill someone, and then that person has to commit suicide, or they have to kill themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a 6-person swing, and that wasn't bad. I mean, that was interesting. That little tale they crafted wasn't bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't love the main protagonist. Antagonist. I didn't think that was really. She obviously wasn't fleshed out. We didn't really know anything about her until the very end, and I didn't like how they filmed it. I felt like the flashes and the jumps that didn't sit well with me because I just didn't vibe out. It's like she was spiritual, but she wasn't spiritual. Even if she was like body jumping or body pushing, it's still, I don't know. It's still odd, but I don't know. So what they did well for me was Patrick and Vera, I think, are just so dialed in on everything that we can do for bringing the Warrens together. I think that's just such a great thing to do. But other than that, I was okay with maybe this thing never have been made. Like, and I don't mean that negatively. I don't mean that I like talking shit, right? I don't mean like, hey, this fucking film was terrible. But I think it does such a disservist to the rest of the Conjuring films.
Did.
Universe,
it films. Did. It really did.
Right?
I consider the Conjuring movies the first two, right? The actual cases. The other ones are just expansions in that actual universe with them, not necessarily part of them. If that makes sense,
Yeah.
It's like watching the Avengers movies and then watching the other ones. That's the best way I can describe it, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But the first one still, I think, is a classic. I think it could be considered a classic as years go on. Number 2 is okay. Wasn't really a big fan of the CGI crooked man and stuff like that. It kind of took me out of the realm of believability a little bit. Number 1 was the best, I think. I still consider number 1 scary. I can still watch that movie and still get scared by it. And that's hard, especially for a horror movie. Like Saw, the first Saw. The other ones, as Saw continues to go on, people are like, oh, it's just torture porn. You know? That's the words that they use it for that. But the first one, there is still a jump scare when the guy's in his home, and it's funny. James Wan even mentions this in one of his interviews. He did a little homage to Rear Window, when what's his face is the Alfred Hitchcock movie, when the guy's like winding up the camera and taking pictures and stuff like that, and the pig in Saw jumps out of the closet and gets him. I'm like, oh, that part still gets me. You know?
That part was terrifying for me.
Yep.
I remember. I know the exact part you're talking about, because that was uncomfortable shit. So okay, so you got the first Conjuring as your favorite.
Mm-hmm.
What's your second and third?
Why'd you have to do that to me? Why'd you have to make it difficult?
You don't think the second one better than the third one?
The second one, no. The second Conjuring is definitely 100 times better than the third one.
Okay, so you've got 1, 1, 2, 2, and 3, 3. Then that's kind of your ranking
for the actual Conjuring movies. Yes, and Annabelle Comes Home would probably be the next best one out of those, out of the continuation or the universe. I think Annabelle Comes Home would be right there.
And Annabelle Comes Home, on talk about that for a second. That one feels like a Conjuring movie. Like The Nun really doesn't. La Llorona doesn't. I think they had a Crooked Man spin-off on Sci-Fi. I never saw it.
Did they?
I don't know. I think they did, and honestly, it was so bad. And I remember this one. I think it was last Halloween, not the most recent one, the one before that. Somebody forgot to put a CG effect in, and so there's a placeholder. It says, "Enter this" or "Play that," and it ran. It was so fucking bad that it actually made it on. Dude, somebody got fired, and rightfully so.
Chris, if that had been you, you'd have had a heart attack.
Dude, I have a heart attack to this day. Every time we release a new something, I feel like we've missed. An audio cue is going to be off. One frame will not be color graded. To this fucking day, I'm always worried something's going to go wrong. But I really liked Annabelle Comes Home. I would say I liked that more than way more than Conjuring 3, actually.
Yep. Same.
You know, it had a homey feel. There was like a family base to it. Like the knitting of the story was family, and then for all the characters, and then the way that they had to deal with it. And horror is a great medium for that lore, because the characters are a lot like the audience. As the characters figure it out, so then there does the audience. There is no jump in knowledge. So, you know, it's a great point to make that when we have a horror movie, we are basically you're the characters in the films, where in an action movie, you're kind of not. You know, right. You're kind of just, you're looking voyeuristically at the situation, whereas a horror movie, you're kind of in it.
Yeah.
And, for me, the Conjuring films have always been great at that. There is a scene in the first Conjuring film where the mom is doing laundry, and I think, or she's looking down. I forget the exact frame of it, and then the sheet goes and it catches on something, and it silhouettes like a person or a poltergeist.
Yeah.
And it's just so good. Like, we just have these moments of just slow burn, and then when the kids are like saying, "Hey, there's something on top of on the bookshelf, and it's looking down at you," those moments are just awesome. And the 3 didn't have any of those, in my opinion. Two had Valak, and Valak was the demon's name, and 2 has the Nun. And you made a great mention of it. The Nun in the film is nowhere near as good. I'm sorry, in its own film is nowhere as good as the Nun in Part 2. Yeah. And for me, like, I put Part 2 above Part 1 because of that, and I think because of the way they figure it out at the end. I think when they cross the 2 tapes and they can hear the guy who they feel has been haunting those people, but actually has been held captive by a creature in the house. The way they figured it out, to me, was more of a detective movie than this third one. And Jessica made this point. I don't want to take credit for it. James Wan said that he wanted his third one to feel like a detective movie, when 2 kind of felt a lot like that, when we have these different entities coming in, kind of discrediting them.
Yeah, I like the fact that they had people there that in that world, because that's exactly what happened in Enfield. They even had the pictures from the movie, and like they actually recreated those kind of things and stuff. I love. But they had people that were trying to recreate, like try and discredit them, which is kind of funny. I was expecting to get some of that out of the third movie, and we didn't get that.
No.
I was like, oh, cool. Maybe they'll bring in somebody like a representative from the church to disprove, or a priest or something like that, because you don't really see that, or something like that. And coincidentally, I was like, okay, I studied this in college. I'm not going to go into. I'm not going to research it before I see the movie. I want to watch the movie and then research it again and see if it matches up. And I'm watching this and I'm like, well, I can't even do the research now because I didn't even get to see any of it. You know,
Yeah.
they did this. They developed this whole Satanist process itself avenue separate from the court case, which is, you know, weird. And also they made all these things happen in the prison, like the fact that he's floating and 4 of the guards see this through the glass and stuff like that too. Right. I was like, if you see that and you're in prison, you're like, you can't just go, it's strings. They set this up. No, it's like, okay, what the hell is this? He's floating 8 inches above the floor, and glass is flying around. We got lights. It was like a freaking hurricane inside the prison, and of course, nothing comes from that, you know. And his girlfriend's there with him as well, just watching it. You couldn't have her testify on stand about, oh yeah, he's floating, tried killing himself. I watched it happen. Yeah. You know, it's like, how you disprove that at that point, right? You bring in a guard and corroborate her story. No, they didn't even do anything with that. They just made it a weird, like, sci-fi, like, you know, occurrence in the film. And they lost my interest in the film like halfway through.
No, and even the payoff, even the climax at the end, you could see it coming a mile away. The dude's carrying a sledgehammer, and then we know way before that the only way to defeat this thing is destroy the table. Yeah, it's like, come on, all right. Well, this is. We got that, you know, it's not going to go anywhere.
They tried doing like a shining little homage with a hammer chasing after somebody like that, but I was like, it didn't land.
Yeah, and then that's I didn't even see that until you mentioned, but yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the Exorcist homage too, when he first shows up, and we've got that shot of the priest stepping out of the cab, looking up at the house, and you know they did.
James Wan does like putting in a lot of homages to awesome horror film classics and stuff, and
and for the most part, he's done it really well. This is, you know, I don't know if this is one-off or whatnot, but you know, for me, you know, the Conjuring universe has gotten so big, and I think that they really pride themselves on that. But I'm going to be honest, like, some of the films that they've put out have been B-rated horror films at best. They've had, you know, A-list actors in most of them. Mm-hmm. And where I was going to go with that was The Nun has Vera Farmiga's sister in it. I thought it was her daughter, because she looks like she's 18 or 19, and Vera Farmiga's in her, I think, 40s or 50s. Yeah. But she's a splitting image of her sister, and so they've got some talented actors in these films. But outside of the Conjuring films, the main ones, 1, 2, and 3, like, they've all been kind of like meh. And Annabelle Comes Home. I'll say Annabelle Comes Home felt really good, but you know, so maybe the Conjuring, you know, maybe it's kind of wrapping up, you know, because James Wan isn't. They had him pegged for. Is he directed? He directed Aquaman, right, Nate? You would know this.
Aquaman? He has a huge resume for films, dude. Like, after Saw, he did, like, first Saw. I think he was a producer on Saw 2, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. But then he went on to do Fast and the Furious. His first Fast and the Furious movie was Fast and Furious 5. You know?
Oh shit, that's right.
When he brought everybody back, and then they offered him 2 films. DC offered him 2 films. They said either Aquaman or Flash, and he chose Aquaman, and he quoted James Cameron as a reference for that, because he's like, not a lot of people have seen the ocean or destroyed it. I wanted to create something different. I wanted to create a landscape that nobody's seen before, or a world, or a culture, or people. And I think he did it really well. And he did Aquaman. Mm-hmm.
And then he did Insidious, right? He was the architect for him and Lee Winnell, the guys who did Saw. I'm almost certain they didn't co-direct it, but I think they may have co-wrote it, and James directed it.
If anybody in chat knows that and wants to, you know, fact check this.
Yeah, Festichoni. I didn't message this dude. I don't know. Maybe there's a mistake there, but
did you message somebody, Tris?
No, I don't even know how to message people. I follow you, and I think I follow Fox, and maybe in Lit, and I play video games, and that's about it. But dude, so the Insidious franchise, that was good, which ironically enough got a 3rd one. It wasn't great, or actually got a 4th one too.
And it also has Patrick Wilson in it too.
And and it's funny. I was going to bring that up, and I don't know if it's Patrick Wilson or so. Aquaman had Patrick Wilson in it too.
Yep. James Wan likes working with him.
I know, and he's great, Patrick. And I never don't believe Patrick. You know what I mean? When
Yeah.
he's talking and when he's acting, I don't ever question that. I did love him and Rose Byrne in Insidious, though. I love the Insidious like storyline. I think that's so captivating and interesting, and
I think
you know,
I think horror is James Wan's wheelhouse. I think he does a really good job.
because even Aquaman, when they went to, is it the deep, Nate? Where do they go when they're on the? Is it the deep? Is it the dark?
Trench.
When the trench. Thank you. I knew it wasn't one. That part.
You're asking me about a DC film? Come on.
I know. That's why, like, you can fact check me at any point when it comes to DC shit. But that was the dope part of it too. In fact, they had even talked about a spin-off of that, which got canned. I forget why. But that part had really cool horror elements of it, playing with dark and light and shadows and.
Oh yeah, that shot when he's going underneath with the flare, and you just see the
so good.
You see the trench just surrounding them and stuff. Yeah. Absolutely, 100%. James, I was watching it with Rachel. I'm like, oh, of course, James Wan's just got to throw just a little bit of his passion into another passion. I love it.
Yeah. That was cool.
If I know James Wan's directing something, I'll watch it. He's like one of those guys that's like in your must-see watch list, and you're like, okay, I know to expect something good from this director. You know? Yeah,
that's a good point. That's a really good point. I think that he's one of those. You know, him and Lee Winnell really have, and even Fede Alvarez. So Fede is lesser known than those two. I actually listened to Lee Winnell and Fede Alvarez speak here in Hollywood. They were talking about crafting horror movies because Lee Winnell had just done Invisible Man, which is great. I think the Invisible Man was a really interesting take on the film.
I loved it.
And and so they greenlit a second one. And Fede remade Evil Dead. He had made Don't Breathe. Mm-hmm. Have you seen Don't Breathe?
It sounds familiar, but I don't think I have.
It's with a blind guy, and these three people break into his house.
Oh, yeah, no, I have it. I have not seen it though. I wanted to watch that one.
Dude, you and Rachel should see that because it's pretty good. So the three of them are, you know, they're like this triangle of new horror talent directors when it comes to crafting stories and this visual aspect of things. And so those dudes are kind of guys to follow in the vein of like what you're saying. Like, hey, if James is directing something, then I'm probably going to watch it because something's going to resonate with me. It's going to hit me right where I feel like I'm going to be scared but also entertained. Kind of like how Invisible Man was, because I mean, Invisible Man wasn't scary really per se, but it was suspenseful. It ratcheted up. You know, when we got these wide shots and something billows, something moves, and you know, these things of using of space and characters and the camera. I think that's important. But yeah, man, and it's funny. It all goes back to Saw, right? These two film students, these two dudes who liked making horror movies. They managed to scrape together a budget. What I think, and you know the story better than I would. They had enough money to pay one lead actor and get one location. And Cary Elwes at that point was still. I mean, he I would say, you know, he's still a name. I know who Cary Elwes is.
Oh yeah, and then you had Donald Glover, and then you also had one of my favorite actors too, Michael Emerson. Right. The guy he played even though he was a small role originally, then you find out he's like kind of like one of the antagonists of the film. He's the one that had Carrie Ewell's family, the wife and kid. He was watching him and stuff. He had Michael Emerson from Person of Interest, one of my favorite shows, and Lost. You know, so three of the actors, and then also James Wan was behind the camera, but his best friend and college roommate was the guy who was in the bathtub. You know.
Yeah.
And
he freaking out.
He was great, and he even shows up like in another film at the end of the film as well too, I think. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think James Wan came back for Saw, the last Saw of the series, because there's two other continuations after James Wan's story with Jigsaw. Because then there you have Jigsaw, and then you have Spiral that just came out this year.
Did you see Spiral?
Haven't seen it yet, but I plan to. Yeah, so I mean, it's got Samuel L. Jackson and Chris Rock in it. It can't be that bad, can it?
True. Yeah.
But Jigsaw was not that impressive, and I'm afraid if you don't put Jigsaw in a Saw movie, it's not going to be good.
It's a big miss, right? It's not putting Jason in a Friday the 13th movie. It's not putting Freddy in a Nightmare on Elm Street film. You know,
right.
Michael Myers in Halloween. You know, at this point, Spiral or Jigsaw is kind of iconic. I mean, he's in the top 7 horror, maybe even top 5 horror villains, recognizably almost in the top 3 because, you know,
Yeah.
Jigsaw's just got that or was Billy the what's the puppet's name?
Shit.
Is it Billy?
I think it's Billy.
I think it's Billy.
I think it's Billy.
I think it's Billy too.
Yeah, and it's funny. He's like probably Saw is probably one of my favorite antagonists himself, Jigsaw, because he's not inherently evil. He's not doing these things out of evil ways. You know, like Freddy
and you
or
don't
Jason
know
who's
that
just
at
killing
first,
people.
right?
You know, you don't. But he's got the there's the pig mask. There's the red robe. There's the doll and the tricycle and stuff like that too. That's kind of inherently a Saw film. If you don't have that, then you don't have a Saw film. You know, it's just me.
Yeah.
Thinking about that. That's a whole different tangent, guys. Sorry, it went off on.
Well, you know what? No, I love it because we talk about making your villains likable and relatable too. If you can do that, then you've got something people can kind of vibe with or people can kind of relate to. It's not just some dude wearing a mask killing people for no reason, which watched I was doing some writing last night, and I always have a film in the background where it can kind of motivate me. I had the remake of Halloween on, and it's terrible. It's dog shit. It's so bad. But going back to Saw, what you don't know about Saw, or people when you the first time you watch it, is that he's actually teaching lessons. Like he's telling these really terrible people, like, hey, you fucked up, and now you can choose one thing or the other in the most gruesome way. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I love a bad guy that's kind of got a vindictive validation on his side. You know what I mean? And I'd love to do a deep dive with you on the Saw franchise, bro, because I mean, honestly, that would give me reason to go back and kind of study the character and the archetype. And Tobin Bell is kind of just he loves talking about his character in the film, and then the arc that his character has throughout the films, because even though they don't always take place in a linear time frame, they all link up with each other in some way, shape, or form, which is great storytelling.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wonderful. But yeah, man. And again, think of it. That's Lee Winnell and James Wan coming out of film school thinking, what can we do?
Right.
We can create a fucking franchise, which is what they did.
Which is what they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
On low money and I studied how they made Saw. You know, I was like, oh wow, this is cool. They probably have this huge studio. No. They filmed it in their garage. They had Donald Glover come over to their house and get into their own van, and they had not extras but PAs on the side of the van just pushing the van, and had people running with lights. I mean, think about Donald Glover from Lethal Weapon just watching these kids do this. You know, it's just cool. It's just cool.
No, it's Danny
Conjuring.
Glover. Danny Glover.
Did I keep saying Donald? Oh my God, Danny. My bad.
I know. Yeah. Play Riggs. I'm cool. No, we didn't play Riggs. He played Murtaugh.
Murtaugh.
This shit.
Yeah. I don't feel so bad. You messed up a character's name. I messed up his old name.
We know.
Conjuring 3 just did not do well, in my opinion. I just did not.
All right.
It just did. If I was going to give it a rating out of a 10, it was a low 6. It was a low 6.
Yeah.
I give it a 6 because of Patrick and Vera's chemistry and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that the daughter's been the same actress, that's cool.
Has it? I didn't know that. So she's the same actress that was in Annabelle?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. What? That's cool. That's cool. That's
Judy, Judy Warren.
I did not know that.
I would love to see an interview with Judy Warren about.
Oh my God! Can you imagine? That would be awesome.
That'd be cool if her and her fiance came forward and talked about what they think of this franchise. You know, that'd be cool to see. Yeah. But dude, that's all I have for Conjuring 3. Did you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, I would tell people to watch it. I would say don't see it. The problem that people's expectations are going to be tailored, and rightfully so, are going to be tailored off of the first 2 Conjurings.
Yeah, you guys are watching the movie based on our review, right? That's what you're waiting for? You wanted our review of the film before you see it? I understand, guys. Good choice.
Right, wait for us to ruin it, and then you can go watch it. But no, I think that I would say definitely watch it because it's got for Patrick and Vera. I think they're so good as the Warrens. I hope they don't make another one. I really don't. I think that obviously they've aged up. I think this film takes place might be 10 years or almost a decade after the second one, and so they did the actors a little bit age makeup, and I would not like to see another Conjuring. I would say a 6 is fair.
I would
say 6 is very fair.
I would see another one if James Wan directed it.
Yeah.
I don't know of any other. I don't know of any other cases. I just know the 4 cases they had. I don't know of a 5th one. And when I say 4, is because in the second one they talk about how they investigated Amityville. in the United
Yeah.
States. They weren't
Yeah.
on it. Most people think that as that they're lying. They did not help Amityville. They never were never sought out by the family. They investigated the issue after the fact, after the murders took place. So
Well,
that was in the second movie, and then they went to Enfield, England, on the case because the church asked them to. You know, and the first one, the family reached out to them because the mom saw them at a college when they were doing a presentation about it.
yeah.
So those
And the
are
film goes into that.
yeah, well, I'm saying that there's only 4 cases that I know of, and those are the 4. So I don't know how they would do a fifth case. I don't know how they would do a 4th movie, but if James Wan was able to create it itself, if he wanted to catapult them outside of the realm of possibility of what they've done in their lives, if he was able to do that, or being, courteous to these people because they are real people, I'd probably see it. I'd probably see it. Because if it was James Wan at the helm, writing and directing and stuff like that, like he did with the first 2, I'd watch it because I like those films. I like the aspect of it. We don't really have any more exorcism type movies that are good like the first one.
Yeah.
All of it's very unbelievable. The first one is, in my opinion, the best and still a classic because the CGI felt so real. I was in it, I was not pulled out of it. Right. The feet dangling behind her. Like you said, the sheet, when Lorraine is doing their laundry and the sheet goes and then goes upstairs and you see the body after the sheet moves away and then you see somebody in the window looking down at her and attacks the mom. The clap part. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely do that. But 6 out of 10 is for Conjuring 3.
It's funny, and I think Warner's feel the same way because they actually do down here in Halloween. You can actually get tickets to like watch The Conjuring. Probably some of the films in the Conjuring universe, but they always have the first one. You get into a studio, and as you walk through it, like you see, like they'll try and scare you, and it's very atmospheric. It's really cool. We didn't do that 2 years ago, but it was available. But yeah, I think yes, in those circumstances, I would watch another Conjuring film. But the problem, and you so eloquently said it, when you have real life people and you have their scope of work, once you exhaust that, out of respect for the people in the estate, it's hard to make something up. Like, you know what I mean? You've kind of built your foundation of this franchise saying these are real life events. And as soon as you come away from that, then it's like, well, you know what I mean? So that's why it would be difficult to do. But yeah, I hope they don't make another one. I love Patrick and Vera in it, and I love James Wan, what he's done with it. The first 2 Conjurings and the Conjuring films as a whole will always be Halloween, material for us. But yeah, for me, it's the second one. The first one is a close second behind that one in terms of the Conjuring films, and the third one is it's a little too. It's 6 out of 10 is a fair assessment.
Absolutely, I think so.
So yeah. So that's it, man. What do you want to talk about next week?
So I there's 2 things. One, Quiet Place, because I got a lot to talk about that film.
Yeah.
I love A Quiet Place. Yeah. I think I'm not gonna delve into it, but I think that is great. I haven't seen a lot of people posting about it because I know that they're waiting to see the film based on ReelChat's review of it. Right, Chris? So
I feel the same way.
I know. I think people want to watch our review of the film before they see it, just to see if it's actually worth it. They'll scrub through. But but also there's another big thing that's coming out this week, isn't there? We have the TV series Loki coming out on Disney Plus on June 9th.
Oh, that's right, June 6th. That's right.
Is it June 6th or June 9th? Because today's the 6th.
It's 9th. It's Wednesday. You're right. It's Wednesday. It's the 9th. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, June 9th. Okay.
Yeah.
My co-host is trying to mess up
my
timeline.
Right? I would love to do that. I know we're gonna see Quiet Place on Wednesday, but also we're gonna watch Loki, and I love that character. Loki is one of my favorite characters in the entire MCU for so many reasons. So,
obvious reasons.
You want to flip a coin? I
don't have a coin. How about you watch both of them, because you haven't seen both of them, obviously. I haven't seen Loki either. So let's watch the pilot, because honestly, Disney Plus's pilots have not been good. People will stay with them because just based on the characters. Like thinking about WandaVision pilot, okay. Winter Soldier and Falcon, all right. Not that great. Pilots are not good. I'm holding out for Loki. I think Loki's going to be great because Tom Hiddleston's just a genius with that character. Yeah. He has so much fun with it, and I think that guy's just a great actor in and of himself. So, watch it on Wednesday. We'll figure it out, guys, and stay tuned with us here on YouTube. And I just want to say thank you so much to all of our fans and viewers that have been sticking with ReelChat as well, too. We have our own YouTube channel now, ReelChat on YouTube as well, too. So, please subscribe to that. That's where you're going to find these new episodes as well. Yeah. And please stay tuned for Sunday's next episode. And also, a little thing, I think we're going to have the girls, Chris's, Jessica, my Rachel, do a show here pretty soon.
You know,
we need to find a time that works.
What? Let's see, have them do The Quiet Place. Maybe we have them do The Quiet. I know Rachel likes horror. Jessica loves horror.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And by then we'll have seen The Quiet Place. I think it would be interesting to hear how.
Okay.
And plus, honestly, it's female led, right? Gemma Lee Blunt is the lead of that point. So maybe, I mean, it would.
You make a good point. You make a good point. Okay.
So let's have the girls do Quiet Place too, and you and I will do Loki, which we are kind of
I love it.
Mischievous. So
that's great.
We identify with Loki more anyway.
Oh man, that's great. I love it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm actually gonna go watch Quiet Place 2 today. I like that movie a lot. Cool. Yeah, it was great. It's definitely like James Wan did with. He did something different with horror. John Krasinski did with The Quiet Place, and it's great.
Crazy.
It's great. I remember running to the bathroom at the end of the movie and turning on the faucet after watching Quiet Place at the Roadhouse with Rachel, and the water sound freaked me out. I was like, no! Oh, not in the movie. That's how immersed I was in the movie. I turned it on to wash my hands. All of a sudden, I went, shh! Oh, wait, okay, never mind. It's a movie. It's not real life.
That's when you know they're doing it right.
Yep.
That's when you know they're doing it right. That's awesome, man.
But okay, so yeah, next we will have the girls do that. We need to figure out a time that works because I think Rachel works Sunday mornings. So what about Saturday afternoons? Is Jessica off Saturday afternoons?
I believe that she is off Saturday. Yeah, I believe that she. Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely.
Okay, find out from her, and I'll talk to Rachel, and we might move this to Saturday afternoon next week.
I love it.
All right.
All right, man.
Cool, man. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it. This is NAT3MILL from ReelChat and
Chris Carter.
All right, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us here at ReelChat. Check it out on YouTube. Like, subscribe, share the video with your friends, and talk to us in the comments what you'd like us to review next. Take care, guys.
We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams.